The other day, I read a post on LinkedIn that said $1370 a day is $5,000 a year. And it got me thinking about where I am financially and what I would do if I was starting out. And upon reflecting, I concluded that basically it's a mental framework and just executing that mental framework that gets you to build a very large net worth. So here's the basic mental framework that I use to push my net worth. Point number one is to know the numbers. Just like the article said, $1370 a day is $5,000 a year. I want to know what my hourly compensation turns into in yearly compensation. For example, $25 an hour is roughly a $50,000 a year compensation. And the math works out a little bit like this. $25 an hour times 40 hours a week is $1,000 a week. There are roughly 50 work weeks in the year, or you're going to take two vacations or two weeks of vacation a year. That gives you 50 weeks times $1,000 a week, or $50,000. Now, how do I use this? This is a target I use to filter the opportunities that I take on. In my opinion, you shouldn't really make less than $25 an hour unless you're working to acquire skills to increase your earning potential. For example, if I wanted to build a career in something, whether it's marketing, investing, or so on, I probably wouldn't take a job working at Starbucks as a barista. But why? Because I'm almost certainly making less than $25 an hour and probably not acquiring the skills that I need in the business that I want to get into, or the career that I want to get into, unless maybe I want to open up a coffee shop or something like that. Now, there's nothing wrong with necessarily working at Starbucks or an entry-level job like that, but my strategy would be to build a book of work. So if I wanted to be in marketing, I would go try and find opportunities to work in marketing. Maybe it's learning how to create landing pages and use that in local businesses, while the local businesses are paying me to fulfill those landing pages for them and drive more business to them. And what that allows me to do is work on refining my skill set, or building my skill set, and building a book of work that I can show to either clients in the future or to a company that I want to work with or work for. And now they're not just guessing or betting on me wanting to do something. They're not taking a chance on me. I have something tangible that they can see that has some results. Now, maybe this advice changes. It's definitely general advice, but maybe it changes if you're like 16 or really young getting started. But maybe you should think about that as well. Maybe there's opportunities out there that you can take to build that book of work. Point number two is to have a plan of where money is going and the returns that I should expect. As a young person, I have no short-term investments, or not really very many short-term investments, especially none that I'm looking to make a quick buck on. For example, my time horizons when it comes to investing in stocks are a minimum of 5 years. So if I buy Microsoft stock, I expect to hold on to Microsoft stock for 5 years. Looking at real estate, if I buy a piece of real estate, typically my minimum hold time is I expect to hold that real estate for 15 years, and there's real estate that I've bought that I expect to hold it my entire life. This insight, or the reason I do that, honestly came from looking at the Forbes list of super wealthy people. When I looked at people that I wanted to model and emulate, who had a lot of success in the field that I'm working in, I noticed that there was no day traders on the list. People who were trying to make quick bucks or running quick little gimmicks. Instead, they were taking positions that were long-term in businesses that they thought were solid. Maybe these businesses were their own, such as Apple, or maybe they were just buying into businesses that other people had created, such as Warren Buffett buying into Apple. What this showed me is that true wealth is much different than just trying to get, quote, rich. The other thing that I would say, though, is do not hesitate to invest in your skill set or your network. For me, this is something that I've come to learn and respect more recently, or value more recently. It's not typically what we think of as traditional investments, because it's not something that is super tangible per se. Like, your skill set is definitely tangible, but when you invest in some of these things as skills, maybe it's learning how to take good photography or good video setup, or maybe it's learning how to market, especially market online. It's not necessarily an asset that you can sell and trade. You only have it in yourself, right? Or for a better example that I've struggled with, but I've also got a lot of value out of, is conferences. I've been going to conferences more and more, and they're not always cheap. Typically, the cost is around $1,000 to attend a conference, and that doesn't include the expense of getting there, which would be airfare, your hotel, your food and accommodations, and other stuff like that. So maybe you're spending closer to $2,000 or $3,000 to attend a conference. But the benefits of the conference can be the people that you meet, the information that you learned that you otherwise wouldn't learn because you don't have the same buy-in. When you spend $3,000 to go to a conference, you have a much greater buy-in than when you spend $100 to learn something online on Skillshare or something. And then the third thing that on the benefits list of conferences is just getting to a different place. When you get to a different place, you start to pull forward the targets that you have because you're getting out of the rut of the day-to-day of your typical experience. Your imagination of what you view that you want to do starts to come to life because it's actually happening in real time. It's not something that is so theoretical anymore. It's now, wow, this is a real thing. Also, being around people that have a common interest as you has so much extra value. I mean, if you've been in that environment before, then you definitely know what I'm talking about. Personally, I used to be afraid of going to conferences because, like I said, it's not necessarily a tangible asset that I can trade off later. So I was worried that if I spent money on this and I didn't get anything out of it, then I was just throwing money down the drain. And after being or going to quite a few different conferences, what I've realized is that so far I've always gotten more out of the conference than the cost was. And a lot of times, a lot more. For example, I don't think I'd be where I am today, especially in purchasing real estate or other adventures that I do, if I hadn't gone to a lot of the conferences that I've gone to. So while it's nerve-wracking to think about it, those are very valid investments and maybe the ones that you should prioritize first. Part number 3 is balling on a budget, or what I originally had written down, balling like I'm broke. How stringent are you on how you spend your money? For me, I approximately spend $150 a week for things like food, gas, entertainment, clothes, etc. This doesn't include, health insurance or my accommodations or anything like that. And that might seem like a pretty tight weekly budget for a lot of people, especially when you throw in gas, especially with the higher prices of gas recently. But there's an important factor to this. It's all about efficiency of the money that I make pushing into the investments to create the life that I want to live. You can't save your way to prosperity. And being uncomfortable really gives you that extra push to move with a sense of urgency on pulling your dreams of the future forward today. Obviously, the intention is not to live like this forever, not to be so tight with money that you never really enjoy it. Because what is the point in creating wealth if you can't enjoy the life that you live, go see the world, and help a ton of people? I think then you miss the idea of what money actually is. And maybe that's a good topic for another video of what money actually is. When I learned what money actually is, which was earlier this year, it kind of blew my mind. And maybe that's another mental framework video, but it definitely was pretty cool. If you're new to this channel, I appreciate you stopping by. I talk about investments and personal development. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That encourages me to go on and tells YouTube that I'm not quite a bum. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But I will continue to make these videos, continue to try to improve, and hopefully see you in the next one. Thanks.